I'm 76 years old, and there's a weight that sits with me most mornings before I even get out of bed. It isn't pain in my joints or the stiffness in my back. It's the memory of all the words I carried around my whole life and never set down. I used to think silence was safer, cleaner, less likely to cause trouble. Now, near the end of my days, I understand that silence has its own consequences. Some of them last longer than anger ever could. I'm not telling this because I need forgiveness. Most of the people I owe words to are gone. I'm telling it because time has made everything very clear, and clarity is lonely if you don't pass it on. These days are quiet, too quiet, sometimes. I wake up early because my body does, not because there's anywhere to be. I sit at the small kitchen table with my coffee and watch the light come through the window. It falls the same way it always has, but it feels different when you know how little time is left to notice it. When you're young, you think reflection is something you do later. You think memory will be optional. It isn't. It shows up whether you invite it or not. In my 20s, I was busy becoming someone. That's what I told myself, anyway. I worked long hours at a job that paid just enough to keep me worried. I wanted to be reliable, respected, needed. I believed that if I did everything right, life would reward me, eventually. I wasn't reckless. I didn't drink too much. I didn't gamble. I showed up to work on time and paid my bills. From the outside, my life looked solid. That's part of what made it so easy to ignore the quiet parts. There were people back then who deserved more honesty from me. I see their faces clearly now. A woman I loved deeply, but never told how afraid I was of losing her. A friend I drifted away from because I didn't know how to say I was hurt. My parents, who heard, "I'm fine," so many times they stopped asking. At the time, it felt reasonable. You don't burden people with your doubts. You don't stir things up unless it's necessary. You don't say things you can't take back. That was the thinking, so I stayed quiet. I told myself I'd speak up later. When things settled down, when I was more certain, when the moment was right. The problem is, the right moment almost never announces itself. Life filled the space instead. Workdays blurred together. Weekends became errands. Conversations stayed on the surface because going deeper felt inconvenient. I learned how to nod, how to listen without revealing too much, how to keep the peace. People praised me for being easygoing. They said I was steady, dependable. What they didn't see was how much I was editing myself, sentence by sentence, year by year. I missed birthdays because I was tired. I postponed visits because there was always something else that felt urgent. I let small misunderstandings sit too long until they hardened into distance. None of it felt dramatic. That's the dangerous part. Regret doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it slips in quietly, like dust settling on furniture you no longer use. I remember a conversation with my wife in our 30s. We were standing in the kitchen late at night. The house was quiet. She said she felt alone even when I was there. I laughed it off and said we were just busy, that we'd find our way back once things calmed down. She didn't argue. She just nodded. That's when it really settled in. Some words have an expiration date. Miss it, and they don't mean the same thing anymore. I lost friends in similar ways, not all to death. Some just faded. We assumed we'd reconnect someday. We didn't. I still know exactly what I would say to them if I had the chance. That's the cruel part. The clarity comes when there's no one left to receive it. Now, at 76, people see me as calm, wise sometimes. They ask how I've managed such a long marriage, Such a steady life. I give polite answers. I don't tell them about the nights I replay conversations I never had. There are things that can't be fixed. That's not pessimism. It's just truth. You don't get to reopen certain doors. You don't get to step back into old versions of yourself and try again. Time doesn't negotiate. I've made peace with many things. I'm grateful for the life I had. I loved and was loved. I'm not bitter, but peace and regret can live in the same body. They often do. If you're listening to this and you're younger than me, I won't tell you what to do. I don't believe in that anymore. Life isn't a checklist. I'll just tell you what I learned too late. Words carry weight while they're still warm. When they're spoken in time, they can change the shape of a relationship. When they're delayed, they turn inward. They become something you carry instead of something you share. Don't assume there will be another conversation, another holiday, another calm evening when everything lines up just right. Most of my life was built on that assumption. Speak while the moment is still breathing. That doesn't mean saying everything. It means saying the things that matter, the uncomfortable ones, the tender ones, the ones that feel risky because they make you visible. I think about that nod more than anything I ever shouted. I could have said I was scared, scared of failing, scared of not being enough, scared that if I slowed down, everything would fall apart. But I didn't have the language for fear back then. Or maybe I did and chose not to use it. Instead, I went to work the next morning. Years passed like that. Not bad years, just quiet ones. We aged together, but we didn't always grow closer. We learned each other's routines better than each other's thoughts. There were moments when words tried to rise up in me. Apologies I rehearsed in my head. Gratitude I planned to express on a better day. Questions I wanted to ask but didn't want the answers to. I thought keeping things smooth meant keeping them unspoken. Then came the turning point, though I didn't recognize it at first. My wife got sick. Nothing sudden, nothing dramatic. Just a diagnosis that rearranged our future without asking permission. Hospitals have a way of stripping life down to essentials. Sitting beside her bed, listening to machines hum, I felt the weight of everything I'd never said pressing against my chest. I started talking then, not all at once, in pieces. I told her I loved her, of course. I told her I was grateful. I told her I was scared. But there were still words that stayed behind my teeth. Old ones, heavy ones, the kind that would have mattered most years earlier. She listened, and she squeezed my hand. She told me she knew more than I thought. That didn't bring the relief I expected. It brought something heavier, the understanding that knowing isn't the same as hearing. When she died, the house became unbearably quiet. Silence again, but this time it wasn't a choice. It was just there, filling every room. I walked through our life together afterward, touching objects like they might speak back. Her coat by the door, notes she'd left on the counter. I said things out loud then. Alone in the kitchen, I apologized to the air. I thanked the walls. None of it landed anywhere. I stayed invisible for too long. These days, when I talk to my grandchildren, I tell them stories, not lessons, just stories. I try to be honest with them. I tell them when I'm proud, when I'm sad, when I miss people they never met. I say the words now because there's less left to lose. I don't know how much time I have. None of us do, really. But it feels different when the horizon is close enough to see. I feel it in my bones, in the way days pass faster now. I still sit at that kitchen table in the morning. Sometimes I speak out loud, just to hear my own voice fill the room. Sometimes I stay quiet. But when words come, I don't push them away anymore. If this meant something to you, if it stirred something you've been holding back, you don't owe me anything. Just don't wait as long as I did. I'm 76, and I regret the words I never spoke more than the ones I did. That's the truth I have left to give.